Let's begin with the bell. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I will begin with a stanza of Rumi from the poem A Great Wagon. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. The question I have for us today is inspired by this poem. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. I say the two worlds that Rumi points to are the world of wrongdoing and right doing and the world of compassion. The doorsill between them is the boundary that I'm going to ask you about today. It was suggested that you get a piece of paper and something to write with for the talk today. And we're going to do a series of very simple questions, and the paper might be useful for you to organize your answers, or you won't answer out loud, but the answers that you make for yourself. And what I suggest is that you draw a line down the middle of your paper. That line is the boundary that we're going to talk about. The question that I pose is, where is the boundary of your compassion? In the real world, in how you show up, in how you interact, not your aspirations, but moment to moment to moment, where is the boundary of your compassion? Who is in and who is out? Think on that. Jot notes as you go. How do you draw that line? What is the turning point or the balance point for that line for you? Who is on one side? Who is on the other? For many of us, certainly for me, when I am putting people on one side or the other of that line, it is ideas of wrongdoing and right doing that often have me make that choice. From our earlier readings in the Sutra book, the fools or so-called enemies, where do I put them? On which side of the boundary of my compassion? People who do wrong, people who think wrong, people who are in some way wrong. Take a minute or two and feel into that question for yourself. Who is on one side of that boundary? Who is another? The real world we're living in these days is polarized in many, many ways. Whether it is on race or gender, political affiliation, religious identification. How many times do I, do we, do you create that boundary between you and another, the other, someone you make an other, over issues that are important to you or to them? That boundary that marks the space, the line, out beyond which we leave behind notions of wrongdoing and right doing, makes all the difference in how we interact, how we relate, how we connect, where we point our anger, our shame, or where we enact our disconnection. On which side of that line do you put yourself? On your best day? Or on your worst day? Are you on the compassionate side for yourself? Or do you focus on the right doing and wrongdoing for yourself? Of course, everyone will have different answers to all of these questions. It is not about the answer in any given moment. But if you do not ask the question and ask the question and ask the question again, you will wander back and forth across the doorsill, continuously and unconsciously. And those around you will be put by you on the right side or the wrong side, the right side or the wrong side. One of the most powerful lessons I ever heard from Junpo was at a sesshin here in Colorado. And a student asked, Junpo, if clear, deep heart mind is beyond all assessing or attachment, why compassion? Why do we care? And Junpo laughed and said, if you figure that one out, you tell me. Now, I don't know that answer. I don't know why compassion. But the koan Junpo was posing points at something that's more important. Unask that question. Unask the why question. Why has no bearing. Compassion is and needs no why. I say compassion is not a finite resource that we can spend or waste, that we must harbor, must be careful with. Compassion is not something that comes into us from the vast, spacious emptiness. Compassion is what arises in human beings within us when we get our stories out of the way, when we touch emptiness, when we experience samadhi, when we simply clear the space for it. Compassion is what happens when we stop doing suffering. What would happen if we were able to bring that boundless, unsourced, arising compassion to all of those who we put on the other side of that boundary? All of those whom we are inclined to judge for their wrongdoing or right doing. If we were to clear away the stories and meet them in that field, out beyond notions of wrongdoing and right doing, as humans, fully, deeply, profoundly connected, what would that world be like? What would your world be like, from your home to your family, to your neighbors, to your town, to your state, to your nation, to the world, to all sentient and insentient beings everywhere? That is the invitation of compassion. And for me, and I think for most of us, that is the project of our era, of our time in this world, is to find that path of compassion and bring it to everyone, even the fools and so-called enemies, especially the fools and so-called enemies. A few more lines from Rumi. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And love is a spring. Submerge. And most importantly, don't go back to sleep. Thank you.